Hello and welcome to the annual Christmas annual tour for the alumni. We are so glad that you're here with us today. Even though it's on YouTube, we want you to know that we will offer you the Christmas cookie recipe, yay, as well as the wassail, which is a drink, and you will find out many more Christmas symbol activities and fun things that we do for the Christmas holidays. I do have one special thing for you today, everyone, and that is Santa can't be here, but Mrs. Claus is here. So Santa does stop here, but he allowed his wife to be here for today. Come on, let me show you. Come with me.
I'm going to talk to you today about the entry hall of your home or your business. In our country, we decorate the outside of our homes just like we do the inside. And the first thing we hear as the holidays approach is the word Christmas. Christmas is the Latin word that means the birthday of our Christ child. The Dutch word is Kerstmis, which is very much like our word for Christmas. Many people misunderstand the word X in front of Mass, but it doesn't have an important significance. In the Greek language, X represents CH, which is the symbol for Christ. The Germans say Weihnachten. The French say the word Noel, and the Scandinavians use the word Yule. But we use Christmas, and they all mean the same, which is the birth of our Christ child. The garland is a part of the custom of bringing the evergreens inside to the home. We bring it in for the aroma and for the essence of decoration. A garland is simply a length of greenery. Most people remove tree limbs and they're wired together, and then the garland may be in a loop. It can be on a doorpost or a light, like it can be on the barber pole. Garland can go any place. Garlands go up over a doorway. We use it in businesses, and I have a funny story to tell you. The people in Northern Europe and the Saxons of Great Britain practiced hanging the garlands long before there was a Christian celebration. So back many thousands of years ago, the people in ancient Rome and ancient Greece used the tree. They wired it together, and that's how they decorated the outside of their home. The garland is a sign of good luck. If you approach a home or a business and there's a garland awaiting you, that is good luck, and you know the people have thought about you and your welfare, and that's the good luck for you and their guests. Although mistletoe is not generally connected with the Christmas symbols, when the Romans quarreled with their enemies, they resolved the quarreling by making the two opponents go stand by the mistletoe. Some historians believe that is where the tradition of kissing under the mistletoe came from. But during the Druid times, which is many thousands of years ago in ancient England, mistletoe was used in their religious ceremonies. And interestingly enough, the hanging of the holly is more of an ancient English ceremony, which was brought directly via Mayflower to America. The mistletoe was made originally by decorating the figures from the manger scene, from the creche. And in that decoration, they formed a wreath, and they put goodies in it for the children. Little tiny, it might be candy, it might be some kind of a little toy, but there was some kind of goodie in it for the children. And it was a place to store these. And on Christmas Day, the children would hit the wreath and get the presents, much like we do piñatas. So that's how the English youth and the single adults took the wreath made from the mistletoe, and they took that cute young girl under the mistletoe, and that is where the kissing of the girl continued. The wreath, made of evergreens, again is a symbol of good luck and a symbol of eternal life. The circle comes from the Advent wreath, which is held by 4 candles representing the 4 weeks prior to Christmas. The wreath stems more from Christianity than it does from the ancient time, although the Romans would bring a laurel wreath and put it on the door to signify the celebration of a victory. The Germans began the Advent wreath, but it was the colonial people in the United States that made the Christmas wreath on the front door one of our traditional symbols, thus a holiday spirit. And we call this, in our alumni group, one of our Christmas symbols.
Welcome. This is Rosie Elder, and I'm the chair of the Girl Scout Alumni Association with Girl Scouts of Western Oklahoma. Thank you for coming into my home. It's a blessing to have you here. And my 3 things I will be talking about today are the Christmas cookies, which you see here, wonderfully designed and decorated, and they smell wonderful. Also the poinsettia, and we'll talk about fruitcake. First of all, Christmas cookies. The reason the cookies are shaped into different sizes and different things and decorated are because back in the day, the Europeans decided they were going to shape cookies. When they made the cookies, shape them into different things. You have gingerbread cookies, you have sugar cookies, you also have cookies that have jam in the middle of them. And these cookies are decorated with reindeer, trees, and wreaths. They are wonderfully decorated. I did not bake these, I might let you know, but they smell wonderful. Also, the shape of the cookies and the decoration were to be eaten later. So most of the time you decorated them and you let them sit before you served them. This is very important since people didn't have a great way to store their food supplies. Also, the gingerbread cookies, they were popular as what were the butter cookies, or what we know today as the sugar cookie. Next, I'm going to be talking to you about our fruitcake. Fruitcake was originated as a means of creating a dessert, and as you can see, this one is a nice sized fruitcake, but it was a means of providing a dessert for your guests during the holiday season, and one that wouldn't spoil, because back in the day they would put different liqueurs inside the tin to preserve the cake, and it also gave it that flavor of whatever liqueur was being used. They also added they're heavy with spices, the cakes are. They're loaded with allspice. Some have ginger, cinnamon, cloves. They put lots of nuts and cherries and different type of fruit that have been marinated in whatever liqueur they wanted. As you can see there, this one has red and green, has the red cherries, has the green candies. In Italy and Great Britain, they made traditional fruitcakes while other countries used their own variation. They mixed other things in them. Some of them didn't, they left the fruit out and just used maybe just the cake itself. In Austria, it was called a Stollen. And in Germany, they use a bûche de Noël. And also in France, Germany and France used the bûche de Noël. Yes, and next I'm going to talk to you about the poinsettia. This is a beautiful plant. This is like one of my favorites. The plant, Patricia told you about the poinsettia back in when she was speaking about the entry sign, and talked about the poinsettia, that it was native to Mexico. And it grows pretty tall into beautiful big blooms, mainly during the month of December. And she spoke to you about the one legend, but I have another story to tell you about. The second legend tells about a young girl longing for her lover. When she passed away on Christmas Eve of a broken heart, it said that her blood fell to the earth and was transformed into the poinsettia, which is the red part. I do want to caution you all that have animals and small children, be careful of the leaves, the green leaves, because they are poisonous if they're ingested, or even sometimes just the oils from the plant gets on your fingers. It could be pretty poisonous. So please be careful of the poinsettias. They do grow pretty tall into the big, big, beautiful. You've seen them that are probably large as a barrel. And so poinsettias are the beautiful plant of Christmas. And they do last even after Christmas if you put them in a dark place. I've put mine in my sunroom, and it's lasted throughout. It lasted through July of the following year, which is interesting that a plant that's really meant for Christmas can last throughout spring and some of summer.
One of the best traditions of Christmas are the songs, the Christmas carols, or the knolls as the French call it. Carol is a Greek word. Typically in the olden days it came with a flute playing and a light, lovely dance. Then the traditions kind of waved, the song continued just for the Christmas season. In singing Christmas carols, it became a very religious time to explain the miracle of the Christ's birth, and beautiful songs to hand down from generation to generation. In 1818 in Austria, there was a church ready to perform their big performance, and their organ broke. Two gentlemen, Mr. Moore and Mr. Gruber, created Silent Night, a beautiful song that we still sing today with our Christmas traditions. In England, people would get dressed in their finest clothes and they would go a-caroling, standing on a street corner singing, or going door to door sharing the beautiful Christmas songs. Singing is a beautiful way to share the Christmas joy that we have at Christmas time. Often when people would go caroling, they would carry a candle, and the candle is a sign of Christ's light. But remember, back in the day there was no electricity, and your only light inside was the candle. Sometimes they would use them before light bulbs on a Christmas tree. Pat spoke earlier about the luminaries in the paper bags that would line the walkway for the candles. The candles are very important because as light bulbs came about, we can decorate our house with beautiful lights to show Santa how to get to our house. And how does Santa bring our gifts to our house? He has elves. These lovely little things that have special powers, just like leprechauns and fairies and gnomes and nissies. And they can sometimes be mischievous, but they're really fun because they're good helpers and they help Santa. Holly is a very fun way. Sometimes the elves are named Holly, but holly is a piece of greenery brought in from outside to liven indoors with the beautiful red berries, the sign of Christ, blood, the points on the holly sometimes were on the crown of thorns that Christ wore. The smell that you bring indoors makes it so pleasant and pleasing that you get to see the beautiful colors of Christmas. With those colors of Christmas, we have the lovely candy cane. The candy cane was originally white and just sugar, beautiful, wonderful, that everybody ate. In the 1600s in England, they had an edict that there was no celebration of Christmas. Stores had to be open, you could not have special meals. But one of the candy makers said, "Bah humbug, I'm celebrating Christmas. Christmas is a time to celebrate Christ's birth." So he created the red in the candy cane to show that Christ is real, just like you and I are with the red. He had the 3 stripes for the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Then he shaped it like a shepherd's staff. And when you turn it upside down, it's a J for Jesus. So it's a beautiful way, they're delicious, by the way, as well, to celebrate Christmas. And of course, we have wassail. Wassail is a wonderful drink. Sometimes when you travel, you get tired and you get thirsty, and when you arrive to somebody's house, especially in the winter at Christmas, you're so cold. And when the host can prepare something warm, it's just wonderful. Sometimes you have apple cider, sometimes you have hot chocolate. But back in the day, they would have wassail. Wassail typically was a fruit drink. In Sweden, they have glögg. Lots of different countries, they take their fruit and they make the wassail. We have a wonderful recipe that we'll be including at the end of this video so that you can make it yourself. It is apple cider, orange juice, lemon juice, cinnamon, cloves, ginger, and nutmeg, and it is exceptionally delicious.
Hi, I'm Miss Susan, and I'm so excited to get to tell you about the beginnings of the Christmas tree. You know, a long time ago, like 500 years ago, there was a priest who lived in Germany, and he was really sad. There were people in his town that were trying to tell the people that God goes to sleep in the wintertime, that he doesn't hear our prayers in the wintertime. They were rough, and it felt like God wasn't listening to them. Well, this priest was having a hard time convincing people that God loved them all year long, and it wasn't just in the summertime that he loved them. We know that God hears our prayers all year, and we know that God loves us all the time. But he was having a really rough time. He went for a walk, and he was praying as he walked. And it was winter, and all the leaves had fallen off the trees, and they were brown, and they crunched under his feet. He went into the forest, and everything just looked dead. It didn't look happy and alive like it did in the spring and in the summer. And then he came across some kind of an evergreen tree. Oh, it was beautiful, and he was so excited to see it. Now, we're not sure if it was a pine tree or a cedar tree, but it was a tree that stayed green even in the winter. And he thought, by George, this is what I need to describe that God is with us all year long. So he took a little branch of the tree, and that Sunday he said, see, the evergreen tree is green and bright and smells good all year long. And the people liked that. They thought, this is really cool. So he cut little branches, little twigs of the evergreen tree, and took one for each person in the church the next Sunday. And they would smell them, and it smelled so good. And they were so happy to have something that reminded them that God loved them even in the wintertime. So he took some of the big branches and put them in the church sanctuary the next Sunday. And people really perked up. And then year after year, they kept doing that at Christmas time. It was really cool. People enjoyed that. And some of his friends who were priests in other towns, and some of the people that had friends and family that lived in other towns were telling them about it. And so year after year, everybody brought in the greens. That's what they call it, bringing in the greens. And then one year, somebody had the bright idea to cut down a whole tree, and they drug that into the church. And everybody cheered and they loved it. It was wonderful. And then people thought, well, some of the little trees we could put in our houses and make our houses smell good. And it would remind us about good things then. So then people started putting decorations on the tree. Now at first, the first things that they put on the tree were fruits like apples and oranges. Oh, that was really pretty. And they liked that. And then they thought, oh, I think it would be good for us to put pine cones that we find outside. And so they put pine cones and nuts and berries and cool things like that. And they decorated the tree with lots of things that they found outside. Then some of the people in the villages were wood carvers. And they said, we can join in on that too. And they carved some wooden toys and things, and they put those on the tree. And then the glass blowers said, ooh, we can make some cool things and put those on the tree and have neat glass things that we can put on the tree like that. So then that got everybody going on that. Oh, it was so cool. And they really enjoyed that. Now this was in Germany. That's a country in Europe. And Germany loved Christmas time because year after year after year, they would bring in the greens and they would decorate their Christmas trees. It was wonderful. Now there was a prince in Germany. He was a member of the royal family. He lived in the palace. It was cool. And he especially loved to help the people bring in the greens every year at Christmas time. His name was Albert, Prince Albert. And he grew up with this in his memory, and he loved doing it. He loved it. Okay, now this is in Germany, and his name was Prince Albert. He was a nice young man. Now, remember that. Then in England, which was another country, there was a king who was very old and very sick. The King of England died, and the king did not have any children. So according to the rules, the next king would be that king's brother. But his brother had also died. But that brother had a daughter. Her name was Victoria. Now Victoria was pretty young. She had just had her 18th birthday when the king died. And all of a sudden, she became the Queen of England. Ooh, she was pretty scared. She was really young to have that kind of responsibility. Maybe you know someone who's 18, or maybe 17 or 19. And maybe you can imagine them being the Queen of England and having all that responsibility. That was pretty scary, but she did a good job. She had some good people that were her advisors, and she listened to them and she made good choices. So she became a pretty good queen. But then there were some people in England that were trying to take advantage of her. They thought they could get by with some pretty dirty things that they wanted to do. So her good advisors said, you know, Queen Victoria, we think it would be a good idea if you got married. Oh, that scared her as much as being queen of the whole country. So she thought about it and thought, well, maybe so. But she was queen, so she had to decide who she wanted to marry. And guess who she fell in love with? You're right, it was Prince Albert. They had a wonderful wedding, just beautiful wedding. She was the first one to have a white wedding dress, and it was beautiful. They had a wonderful romance and a wonderful marriage. She loved Albert so much, and Albert loved her. And the people in England really loved Albert as well. And they had a wonderful courtship and a wonderful marriage. But you know, at Christmas time, Albert got very homesick for Germany and bringing in the greens and having a beautiful Christmas tree. So, you know what Victoria did? She had the men at the castle go out into the woods and cut down a Christmas tree and bring it into the palace. Oh, Albert loved it. He thought it was wonderful. And they had beautiful decorations the way Prince Albert grew up in Germany had. And then they decided that it was a good thing for it to be lighted at night. Now, they didn't have any electricity in the palace. They had only lights that were candles. So they had some special candle holders made for the candles that would fit onto the tree. And they had candles all over the tree and lit them up at night, and it was beautiful. Oh, it was so gorgeous. But it was also kind of dangerous. Yeah, you guessed it. They were afraid that the tree might catch on fire. So they had to have people that worked there at the palace stand by the tree and not go anywhere. And they always had a fire bucket on the floor and a cloth in the fire bucket in case it caught fire. Does that remind you about camping and having your campfire? You always have a bucket of sand and always have a bucket of water in case it gets out of control, and to put it out at night. That's right. They had a lot of good safety precautions, just like you. So They had a wonderful Christmas in the palace every Christmas from then on. Now I need to tell you that today on top of your Christmas tree, you might have an angel, you might have a funny doofloppy, something hilarious on top of your tree. But it used to be that there was always a star on the top of the tree. The reason that there was a star was because there is a special star in the Christmas story in the Bible. And that was the star of the 3 wise men. Now, when Jesus was born, there was an explosion in the sky. It was so bright, and nobody knew what was going on. And we're not really sure what it was that was going on. But some of the astronomers think that what happened after that explosion is the North Star today. Now, Jesus was born in Bethlehem, but there were people in other neighboring countries that had a long, long history of what things were going to happen. And in their big books, it was written that when this kind of an explosion would happen, that meant a special king was born. So they said, let's find out what we're supposed to do. And according to what was written in their book, they were supposed to go find this king and bring him presents and welcome him into the world. So they got ready and they brought some king presents. They brought gold, and they brought frankincense, and they brought myrrh. Now we're going to talk about those different things: gold and frankincense and myrrh. Now gold was a precious metal, like it's a precious metal today. And it was very expensive, and it was only meant for the royalty. There was not gold in everybody's houses. It was only in the castle, only in the palace. And the king of the land took care of the gold for the whole country. And that was a special thing. Frankincense was a perfume that when you light it with a match, with fire, it puts off an aroma. The smoke goes into the whole area, and it smells good. It's a very precious smell and a very expensive perfume for the house. Now I need to tell you that the reason frankincense was used was when somebody died. When somebody died at that time, they would lay the body out, and have time to give reverence and to give consoling thoughts to that person who had died. But when a person dies, that body starts to decay. Now, the person isn't in that body anymore. The person has already left, and the body is left to decay. But when it decays, it smells very bad. So they would light the frankincense to cover up the smell of the decay. Now, not everybody had frankincense because it was so precious. Only the kings had gold, and only the kings had frankincense. Then myrrh is another perfume. It was an oil. And this oil they would pour on the dead body, and it would make everything smell so much better. And if you bought myrrh oil today, it would cost a lot of money. So not everybody had myrrh. Not everybody had frankincense. Not everybody had gold. Just the kings. And Jesus was a special king. However, he was born not in the palace, not in the castle. He was born in a stable, along with animals, where the animals pooped and where the animals slept. This was a different kind of king that we were celebrating at Christmas, a king for everybody. Now, I'd like to tell you that a long time ago, that on Christmas morning, it was a tradition that everybody would dress up and go to church and have a big celebration and a worship service before they even opened presents at home. So some of the people would dress up like a shepherd. Some of the people would dress up like one of the kings. Some people would dress up like Mary. Some people would pretend that they were an innkeeper. And the children loved to be little shepherds, and the babies all got to be baby Jesus. It was really a fun thing. And then after a while, the wood carvers said we could make figures like that would be the Mary and Joseph and the characters of the Nativity or of the birth of Jesus. So here is a typical kind of thing that they would use. And this was a stable. Now, a stable is supposed to be for animals. So maybe they had a cow that was in this stable. Maybe they had a donkey. And maybe they had a goat. Maybe they had a little lamb. Maybe they had another goat. And in this stable, they always had the feeding trough, the place that they would eat out of, a place that they would put the hay. Now, there was a stable in the back of one of the inns, one of the hotels in Bethlehem, when Mary and Joseph had their journey to Bethlehem. So there was an innkeeper, and there was an innkeeper wife who would come out and feed the animals and give them fresh water. And when Mary and Joseph got there, the hotel or the inn was full. They didn't have any place that they could stay. So the innkeeper and his wife said, you know, you could stay in the stable. It would be a nice place to be. It's very quiet out there, and you would be by yourselves. It would be private. So they took Joseph out to the stable, and he said, yes, Mary, come on in. We can stay here tonight. So they did. And then on Christmas Day, baby Jesus was born. So people that had these nativity sets would go through the Christmas story, and on Christmas morning, they would put baby Jesus in the manger. And they would tell the Christmas story from the Bible about how the shepherds came. The angels came and told the shepherds, oh, go into town and see the baby that has been born. Pretty cool. And they got to see them. And then, remember we talked about the 3 kings that came to visit baby Jesus? And they brought gold. Here's the king. And they brought frankincense. And they brought myrrh. And they came. You know, I think those kings thought they were going to go to a palace. They didn't know that they were going to go to a stable with the animals and with common people, grumpy people. They thought they were going to go someplace special. Now, I just have one camel. Sorry. I guess they all had to ride one camel. Or maybe there were more camels. But on the way home, on that slow camel, they talked about, are you sure that we should have given those precious gifts to somebody that was born in a stable? They said, well, according to our book, yes, we were supposed to do that. So they got some special gifts for a very special king, King Jesus. Thank you for listening to this story.
Hi, Merry Christmas. This is the craft part of our show, and we're going to start out by telling you about the 12 Days of Christmas, which is a popular song, and it had to do with Old England, and they had, there was actually 12 days of Christmas where they gave each other gifts, a gift each day. And this song goes, on the first day of Christmas, my true love gave to me a partridge in a pear tree. And then the second day of Christmas, my true love gave to me 2 French hens and a partridge in a pear tree. On the third day of Christmas, my true love gave to me 3 French hens, 2 turtle doves, and a partridge in a pear tree. And so on and so forth until you have 4 calling birds, 5 golden rings, 6 geese a laying, 7 swans a swimming, 8 maids a milking, 9 ladies dancing, 10 lords a leaping, 11 pipers piping, and 12 drummers drumming. And when you go to each new day, you repeat all the previous days. And so it makes a very pretty song, and it also has a very good, your memory is definitely challenged till you learn the song. I would sing it to you, but I am flat. I sing flat. So, but it's a very old song, a very popular song, and it's almost all the time at Christmas, and you will see many, many, many decorations in regards to this. This happens to be a very nice display of all the 12 days of Christmas. So that's one Christmas symbols that we all know and appreciate. Last year we did crafts that we made door hangers, and this is a sample of the door hangers that one of y'all made and left behind, which is fine. And we used I punched out different shapes, and we had just made a 3.5, I think, by 8-inch card background. So I had a lot of this stuff left over, and so I thought our theme this year would be reduce, reuse, recycle, using things that you have around the house. You can use wrapping paper, you can use old cards, but we started with this. Here's the blank sheet, and I folded it in half, and I used a paper punch to make a hole and put a ribbon through it. I found old wrapping paper, and I used the snowflake side, and I had snowflakes from last year's group that was, we punched these out. And this is what I made with this card. So it was, then I had a stamp that said "Make Merry," or you can write your own. I know that you girls have all kinds of markers, crayons, colored pencils, even some of you may even do stamping and with ink. So there should be no reason why you can't make your own Christmas card, or these smaller cards you can use to put as Christmas tags on presents, or even just hang them on your tree for this year as something new and different. Our 2020 COVID card. You can also get a sheet of paper. Most of your sheets of paper are like 8.5 by 11, including your notebook paper. And you take this paper, and you can, if you have a paper trimmer, that's fine. Otherwise, you can just fold it in half, and then cut it in half like this, and then you will fold that half into one of these halves, and you'll wind up making a Christmas card like this, or with the base card, or like this. So you can turn it either way. These are little stickers that I found at Family Dollar, and then I had my own little stamps that put Christmas greetings. So you can make a very simple little card like so. Don't forget, you can use different colored paper too. You don't have to necessarily use white, but I just used white to show you. So these are what your craft items are today. Remember to reduce, reuse, recycle. Look around what you have at home. Like I said, old cards, wrapping paper. You can just use plain typing paper that your parents write professional letters on, that you may type them, and you can just put them in a business envelope. So remember to utilize what you already have is the goal. Reduce, reuse, recycle for the holidays.
Merry Christmas, everyone. I want to introduce you to some of the Christmas symbols that we have. We have the little drummer boy right here, and through no historical background can be actually found about him, we all know that he brought the baby Jesus, the drum, and the music as his gift. But I would like to say to you, the music was written by Henry ortorale with the words by Harry Seminole. It was first recorded by Catherine Davis in 1959, and the story has been told in numerous art forms over the years. So the little drummer boy came to bring his gift, and because he didn't have much, he only had his music and his drum. So there's the drummer boy. Also, I want to show you about the Christmas colors and what they mean to us, and they're really, really special. So with this, you know, green has always been the symbol of evergreens, and it's a living tree, and it lives throughout many seasons. And so that was one of the reasons why we have the green evergreens. Now, naturally, we have found in Christianity, green also symbolizes eternity. It also continuance in life and in death because it's evergreen. And then the color green means also that it brings into our homes the beauty and the peace of outdoors. How nice is that? Also, I want to tell you about the color red. The red is the color of the blood of Jesus. It symbolizes Christ's blood, the ever-living shedding blood on the cross. The red is also a color found predominantly in the nature, especially in the wintertime, and it's the celebration of our Christmas that occurs. That brings us to the white, our white rose, and that is purity. And with that, the Christmas rose is a symbol, and it traces back into the day of the wild rose, which bloomed only in the Christmas time with holly and mistletoe. At that time, its whiteness stood for purity, innocence, and it symbolized the Messianic prophecy of our Christ Jesus. A legend tells us of a small orphan and a shepherd girl who went to visit the Christ child. Upon seeing the beauty of the Holy Child, the girl burst into tears. And when she did this, she felt that she needed to do something to give as a gift. And the only thing that was growing at the time was the Christmas rose. So with that, we're gonna go, follow me, we're gonna go to the Christmas bells. Here is the Christmas bells. Back in the day, we did not have like alarm clocks or telephones or anything like that. So you would hear the church bells ringing when there's something going on that was so very special. So before the clocks, bells were very important in the villages. So when something special would go on, the bells would ring in the church. If there was something that needed to be announced, the bells would ring and people would gather in the village. Now I would like to say to you, most importantly, the bells on the churches called people also to worship. And the ringing out of the church bells was one of the people's way to celebrate Jesus Christ's birth. Now, one more place we need to go. Follow me. Thanks for following me over here, everybody. Welcome again. I wanted to show you about the Christmas angels and what they mean. Now, there are several different types of angels, and the one that we most know around Christmas time is the cherubim, which is actually the instrument of the total of the singing of the glory for the Jesus Christ, the tune for the holidays. And the little cherubims are normally little baby angels. And I think I might have one over here. Let's take a look, everybody. Come a little closer. There may be a little one in there. I also wanted to tell you in 1223 AD, St. Francis of Assisi created the kiss, or the idea, I should say, of the nativity. And with that being said, as the idea spread, as did the use of the angels. And that's how the angels got around. But if you remember, the night of the nativity, when Jesus Christ was born, there was an angel that was over the manger that drew in the magi, which you've seen earlier. Now, with that being said, I thank you all for joining my station, and I hope that you have a very Merry Christmas.
Okay, we're going to take a little trip a little few centuries ago. Remember then, we didn't have the wonderful thing called electricity, but we did have somebody a family that maybe had just one room and they lived in it. And they had to have a fireplace that was big enough so that they could prepare their food for the animals that they provided their food from. Also, that was the only place where they could get warm and the only place they could get live. So it's just one big room. Now, one of the great things about at that time was their belief in something, because all of a sudden it got dark. It's dark, even darker than now in Oklahoma after 5 o'clock. And it was cold, bitter cold. So they have to go out in the woods and gather their firewood. Well, they also knew that eventually they would come to spring. So it was a group of men would be selected and go out in the forest around when they thought it was going to be this was the darkest night, the coldest night, and so they could be able to go out during the daytime and chop down a tree. Now, not just any tree. The tree has to probably be about, maybe 5 or 6 feet tall by the time they chopped it down. And they drug it into the home, and there they found that they would have, you didn't have to chop it up, because as it was going to be used during the 3 or 4 days before they thought Christmas was happening, that they would have to be able just to push that log, just like my foot's doing, a little bit down the way. And so during those times, somebody would say, it's time to move the tree. So they'd put it in. Now, after they got through using the tree there, they would take it out, make sure that there was no fire in it, and they would save it to use the next year to start the new year for them. However, they also took the ashes, and they would gather up the ashes and throw them over the land where they were going to do their spring harvest or planting. So that's, I think, probably how they decided that plants would get better food to grow up. Also, they would have us take the ashes, which if you had a wound or something on your feet, on your body, they would rub it in. Isn't that unusual? So that was called Yule, and the Yule remembers, the Yule is known as life, because when they cut down the tree, it was no longer life, but as it was going up. Okie dokie, now we get to do the fun part. Just a little history though. Remember that during the time of the holiday seasons and everything, we have all kinds of names. We've got Saint Nick, we've got Father Christmas, we've got Kris Kringle, but what person we end up with who? Santa Claus. Now, there really was a bishop, and he was from a Scandinavian country, Denmark, and he would go down through the villages, saying hello to the people, being very kind, giving little smiles about, but the one person he was very fond of loving children. And he thought, well, maybe I should figure out something, and he would have these little gifts for him. So that's how we kind of got St. Nicholas at the very beginning of the time. Also, when we see Santa Claus today, it's a little bit different, because of Santa Claus, we think of Santa Claus as in red suit. That didn't happen. During the time of St. Nicholas, they might have long gowns, and they would have it, a staff that they would carry, and they would have their long beards and everything. But that's not what we are dealing with in modern times. So what would happen is St. Nicholas, when he went down sometimes through the village, he found out that there was 3 ladies, 3 very young girls, were wanting to be married, but they didn't have a dowry. Now, if you don't know what the word dowry is, you look it up in your dictionary. And so anyway, St. Nicholas realized that, they didn't have the money, However, they did have something else. When the village girls or the men, whatever, they'd go outside and do their chores, it's raining and it's cold in Denmark. And so they would come in and put their stockings right before on the floor, so they would be dry so they could put them on the next morning. Well, St. Nicholas went down and found a house that had a window open. And so he just had some coins in his pocket, took them out, threw them up, and would you know what? They went down the chimney. And that's exactly what's going to happen when you hang up your stockings. And I know you haven't done it yet, but I'm sure you'll get your stockings up. So now you not only get gifts under the tree, but you now get your stockings full. Now also, we have a special treat. You know, Santa Claus really works hard. He goes all over the place and he's tired. So we have now decided that we have goodies for Santa Claus. So I'm hoping you're making your treats. Some of you may have hot chocolate, some of you may have hot tea, you have cookies, you have whatever things that you want to have. So Santa, after he's filled your stockings, put down your gifts, and he can sit down and have a snack. But you forgot somebody else. Who did you forget? That's right, exactly. 8 tiny reindeer. Now, in the old days, the only place you could find a deer was in a Scandinavian country. And little by little, they finally figured out we need to have the magical reindeer so that they can come and live in America. So we do have several areas in the United States where you can go and see the reindeer. Well, the reindeer get a special treat. Now, this is what I want you to do. Before you go to the general store or whatever, I want you to buy those little cubes of hay and some carrots. And on Christmas Eve, I want you to walk out your front door, whether it's an apartment or a house, and I would like for you to just throw the treats out for the reindeer. And then first thing Christmas morning, you go out and they're all gone because the reindeer have already had a snack. Now back to good old Santa Claus. Remember I said he was not dressed in red? That really did happen. It came, there used to be a magazine called The Post, and they wanted to have Santa Claus on the front. Well, green just wasn't going to work in the gray. The artist said, you know, you can't put Santa Claus in something green. It's not bright enough. So what happened was they had a contest. And on that contest, people would mail in what they thought Santa Claus should look like, what he should have. But what they finally ended up is what we have today. And Santa Claus has a red suit, and he also has the white fur. Now, there's something special that I really think is the greatest thing going. If you have not read or even heard the story of 'Twas the Night Before Christmas Went All Through the House, not a creature was sparing, not even a mouse. You can either go online and it's something wonderful to read to younger children, older people, whatever. That is what we need to do.
Hi, I'm Mrs. Claus. I'm so glad you could join us this year for our Christmas Symbols Tour. I have a special treat for you today. The image of Santa Claus, which most Americans think of, is a big, round, plump Santa Claus with a big stomach. And it was written, there was a poem written in the year 1823 by Clement Moore. It was called A Visit from St. Nick. He wrote this in 197 years ago, if you could just imagine that. And Dr. Moore used his imagination very well when he wrote it. He composed Dr. Moore used his imagination well when he composed this wonderful poem for the amusement of his children. The idea to describe Santa as a fat, jolly, and bewhiskered figure who smoked a stubby pipe was fashioned after a favorite servant in the Moores' home. In the mid-1930s, Coca-Cola Bottling Company wanted to get a picture of Santa Claus so they could put him on trays and glasses and other items they were beginning to sell. So they called in an agency. Of course, no one's ever really seen Santa Claus, so they called in this agency to draw a picture of Santa Claus. And I wonder if they were reading this poem when they decided to draw Santa Claus as we know him today. This is a book. It's a Whitman Giant Telltale book, copyrighted in 1960. I've had this treasured book for 61 years, and as you can see, it's gotten a lot of use. I do want to explain one thing that is talked about in the poem, and he calls it the down of a thistle. And this is a thistle. It grows outside, it is green, and when it gets dry, it turns brown, and when the wind comes, it opens up, and little pellets fall out, and they're like angel hair, and they blow in the wind. And when he uses the word the down of a thistle in the poem, he's describing how lightly the reindeer fly. They fly like the down of a thistle, and that's what a thistle is. I'm glad I didn't get that all over my home. Okay, let's begin. 'Twas the night before Christmas, when all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. The stockings were hung by the chimney with care, in hopes that St. Nicholas soon would be there. The children were nestled all snug in their beds, while visions of sugar plums danced in their heads. And Mama, in her kerchief and I in my cap, had just settled down for a long winter's nap. When out on the lawn there arose such a clatter, I sprang from my bed to see what was the matter. Away to the window I flew like a flash, tore open the shutters and threw up the sash. The moon on the breast of the new fallen snow gave a luster of midday to objects below, when what to my wondering eyes should appear but a miniature sleigh and 8 tiny reindeer with a little old driver so lively and quick, I knew in a moment it must be St. Nick. More rapid than eagles his coursers they came, and he whistled and shouted and called them by name. Now Dasher, now Dancer, now Prancer and Vixen, on Comet, on Cupid, on Donder and Blitzen, to the top of the porch, to the top of the wall. Now dash away, dash away, dash away all. As dry leaves that before the wild hurricane fly, when they meet with an obstacle, mount to the sky. So up to the rooftop the coursers they flew, with a sleigh full of toys and St. Nicholas too. And then in a twinkling,
I heard on the roof the prancing and pawing of each little hoof. As I drew in my head and was turning around, down the chimney St. Nicholas came with a bound. He was dressed all in fur from his head to his foot, and his clothes were all tarnished with ashes and soot. A bundle of toys he had flung on his back, and he looked like a peddler just opening his pack. His eyes, how they twinkled, his dimples, how merry. His cheeks were like roses, his nose like a cherry. His droll little mouth was drawn up like a bow, and the beard on his chin was as white as the snow. The stump of a pipe he held tight in his teeth, and the smoke, it encircled his head like a wreath. He had a broad face and a round little belly that shook when he laughed like a bowl full of jelly. He was chubby and plump, a right jolly old elf, and I laughed when I saw him in spite of myself. A wink of his eye and a twist of his head soon gave me to know I had nothing to dread. He spoke not a word, but went straight to his work and filled all the stockings and turned with a jerk. And laying a finger aside of his nose and giving a nod, up the chimney he rose. He sprang to his sleigh, to his team gave a whistle, and away they all flew like the down of a thistle. But I heard him exclaim, ere he drove out of sight, "Happy Christmas to all, and to all a good night." I hope you enjoyed the story, and I'm glad you were able to come again this year. Bye-bye. Thank you, and Merry, Merry Christmas.
We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Goodbye. Thank you for watching.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.